Welcome back to our first episode of Gen CFB of this college football season. Lucy, week 0 has already come and gone, and now week 1 is here. We have so much stuff to talk about. Where do you want to start?
I think I want to start outside of the week 0 games. I think us college football geniuses, we knew what was going to happen. We knew Georgia Tech was going to win that game. We at least knew they were going to cover. We have to talk about the Connor Stalions documentary because I wasted my evening. I wasted my night. An hour and 27 minutes I'll never get back.
Was there anything that you learned from the untold? Okay. Yep. I'm kind of with you on that one. I don't think much more was added to the story that we didn't already know. Any key takeaways other than you feel like you wasted your time?
It made me really mad. It just made me angry. We should not be doing documentaries on things that happened within the last year. I think even 5 years is too close. This should have been something that we saw 10 years from now after Michigan's national title eventually gets stripped or whatever. But the whole thing was just Connor Stalions being I didn't do it. But if I did, this is how. And this is how I was trained. But I didn't do it.
I felt like a lot of it felt like it was meant for people that either don't watch college football at all or was for Michigan fans. But even Michigan fans, I think, are just sick of hearing from Connor Stalions. They want to pretend like it didn't happen. And they're like, hey, we won the national championship. We don't really care about this guy. We've all moved on. But there was some sort of key things in the saga that were just completely unaddressed. They barely spent any time on Jim Harbaugh or on any of the various Michigan coaches who were let go last season during all of this. It was very strange, and I'm with you. I'm not exactly sure what it was for.
The thing I was mad that they left out is it was over, and I was where was the vacuum talk? Why didn't they address the vacuums? I mean, I'm here for the vacuums.
If you're gonna give me Connor Stalions, let me read the manifesto. There was also Taylor just said in my ear, "Bro-hio." That was
awesome. That was great. That was really great.
I felt like an hour through, they did a montage of Connor Stalions memes, and I'm like, did we have to reach a runtime quota? Why is all of this in here?
It was so unnecessarily long. It could have been 20 minutes and got the same point across, but it was all just hey, here's what people said about it. And Connor Stalions, here's his entire backstory that no one asked for, that no one cares about.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're on the same page with this one then. Like you said, week 0 come and gone. The new playoff system is upon us. I think I counted 17 times that it was explained during Saturday's week 0 broadcast. So get used to that. There's going to be more of this in week 1 from ESPN as they try to catch fans, get fans up to speed on how the 12-team playoff is going to work this year. But we have now arrived finally at this moment of conference realignment where we have Cal for some reason in the ACC. We have SMU playing their first game as an ACC member. We have come and gone from Big Ten Media Days where Deshaun Foster gave one of the most awkward introductory press conferences in the history of the Big Ten. And
he belongs there.
And it was magical. And now, Lucy, we're finally here. We're finally starting the season.
It's weird. I'm curious how you have felt watching, there weren't, outside of SMU, this weekend, there weren't any of the new teams in action. It's still something that as people were asking me about this season and my conference championship predictions and whatever, my brain still hasn't been able to fully process oh, this team is here now and this is how many teams are going to play, blah, blah, blah. My brain hasn't accepted it and I don't think it ever will.
Yeah, it's going to take some time to get used to. It's very weird to be yeah, Oregon's going to get that Big Ten auto bid in the playoff. That just feels wrong. It just feels so wrong. Yeah, so I'm with you on that. And especially because we were getting the new playoff the same year we're getting Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC and the complete dissolution of the Pac-12 completely. Now we have the Pac-2 and they're joining the Mountain West. And so there's just so much change for this college football season that I feel like it's going to be some new stuff is exciting and fun, but it can also be a little confusing, I think. It will definitely take some getting used to for fans.
No, I agree too. And then you add in the aspect of we have lost 3 out of the 4 playoff teams from last year. Their head coach isn't returning. That's crazy. So there's all this outside stuff.
There's no Nick Saban.
Inside. No, Nick Saban is on College Game Day now. What do you mean?
Right.
What do you mean? He should be busy doing something else.
Go recruit. Stop talking and go recruit. Taylor, before we move on, I heard that we have a sponsor for this segment.
Yep, recapping what happened the previous week. It is presented by Cheez-It. This college football season, we're feeling the cheesiest with Cheez-It.
Cheese. Those are some of my favorite commercials. The giant wheel of cheese chanting cheese at their coach. I love it. Thank you, Cheez-It. We're happy to be here. We're big fans of the Cheez-It Bowl. Before we move on to what's going to go on this upcoming weekend in college football, Lucy, do you have any lingering week 0 thoughts? Florida State, Georgia Tech obviously was the marquee game of the weekend in Dublin. Where are we at now?
I think my big takeaway is I didn't really expect. I think anyone who looked at what Florida State lost last year and what they brought in at the quarterback position kind of was understanding that this was going to be a major drop off, because last year was sort of like their all eggs in that basket. They lost so many players. Everyone was a senior. You lost that much. You bring in DJ. There was going to be an adjustment phase. What that showed me is, wow, the ACC is wide open this year. It doesn't really feel like there's a clear favorite, because Clemson you could put in the mix, but Clemson hasn't been the same Clemson over the last few years. Florida State looked terrible. Georgia Tech looked great. There's so much going on with the ACC, and I kind of want nothing to do with any of it.
Yeah, the ACC definitely is going to be interesting. I know Miami is the popular pick right now to win the ACC, and I'm not going to lie. I know, Lucy, you're making a face. Everyone in the studio right now, everyone in the studio is like, oh God, I'm scared.
Mike Ryan's listening. I'm not making a face.
Billy Gill's doing the U down over Taylor's head right now. But it is an interesting conference, because you're right. This Georgia Tech beating Florida State was something that, a little surprising, but like you said, given some of the huge changes to Florida State's roster, not that big of a surprise, but it does kind of crack the door open now where, it's week 1, already a top 10 team has lost. And we'll see where the ACC goes from here. DJ Uyunglele finished the first yard with negative 0.1 air yards per attempt passing.
That bad?
Doesn't give you a lot of hope for a vertical passing game to come out of Florida State in the future. And he's been a player that, I honestly felt a little bad for how much blame he was getting for Florida State's performance in that game. And I thought, where is this defensive line that everyone's been talking about being the best in the country? They didn't record a single sack. Georgia Tech's offensive line played great and were just outstanding in Dublin. So yeah, Brent Kenow, the Georgia Tech head coach, has gone 5-0 versus ranked ACC teams, beating Carolina twice. Taylor, I know you didn't have to look that stat up.
This was the first time meme where it's everybody was surprised Georgia Tech's going beating a top 10 team. I'm like, no, this is something I experience every year. Carolina's going to be a top 10 team, and Georgia Tech is going to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, pretty much. So for shout out to Georgia Tech. Huge win for them in week 0. There was also, like you mentioned, SMU played. They beat Nevada after having a big comeback in the fourth quarter. We've all found out together as a country that Bronco Mendenhall is the new head coach at New Mexico. I honestly did not know that.
No clue.
Yeah.
No idea.
And they were 12.5 point dogs to an FCS team, and they lost to Montana State, but they did cover. So, good teams win, great teams cover, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that was week 0. And now we move on to week 1 in college football. Lucy, I know you're going to a college football game this weekend, and I know you're so excited about it. But before we get to Saturday, we've got Thursday games, we've got Friday games, and we've got some big nooners on Saturday. So let's start with Thursday. What are you looking forward to on Thursday night?
Taylor put on our little rundown North Carolina at Minnesota. I want to just make it super clear I'm not looking forward to that. Not even a little bit, not even slightly interested. Kind of mad it's on this list. I'm looking forward to North Dakota State at Colorado, because everyone learns the hard way. You don't schedule North Dakota State. I think that Matt Rule even said it, when he got the job at Nebraska, he went up to the AD and was like, don't you ever schedule a Dakota. Don't ever do it. We all learn the hard way, and Colorado has all this hype coming into the season like they did last year. You have the weird stuff with Dion and his pressers that it has gotten kind of old to me. I don't really care anymore. But you have all of this culminated to a matchup with a FCS team that is better than at least 50% of all the FBS teams. So this is not an easy game by any means, and it wouldn't shock me even a little bit if North Dakota State won.
I think Colorado will win, but I do think it's the perfect game for hot takes on Friday and for the rest of the weekend, because if Colorado wins big in this game, it's wow, Colorado, look at them starting their season with a really tough opponent and beating them and proving they are head and shoulders above this dominant FCS team. Even though North Dakota State's head coach left last year for a job at USC, and now they have a new head coach who was formerly, I think, the offensive coordinator there. So new coach, but returning quarterback who was pretty good last year. So then the flip side is like if Colorado somehow loses or if it's like a close game, it's going to be like, oh my God, like all of the Deion haters and every Colorado person that like just has so much animosity towards them is just going to be just, oh my God, feasting. So it's a fun Thursday night game, I think. I'm with you on North Carolina at Minnesota. Taylor, if you want to give us like a 30-second scouting report, I'll let you do it just because it's like a Power 4 versus a Power 4 game, but don't get used to that.
Carolina has one of the best running backs in the country, Omarion Hampton. Omarion rushed for over 1,500 yards last season. Carolina replaces their defensive coordinator, Gene Chizik. They bring in...
Why? What happened?
A disaster. To put it plainly, it was a disaster last year. They replaced their defensive coordinator. They bring in Jeff Collins from Georgia Tech, who was Georgia Tech's head coach. So maybe there's something there. Carolina's starting quarterback is Max Johnson, who formerly of LSU, formerly of Texas A&M, third stop. Hasn't really worked out at any of his stops so far. So there, but Carolina,
third time's a charm.
Third time's a charm, and we're not asking him to go out and beat Alabama.
You're not asking him to beat Drake May.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
be you.
And last year I said there's a certain excitement to not knowing what you have at the quarterback position. But as we're getting closer to this game, I'm like, I would much rather have a Sam Howell or Drake May.
Oh, man. Okay, well, there you go. Lucy, take us to Friday night. I think there's 21 games on Thursday, only 6 games on Friday, and not really as many super noteworthy matchups. But what are you going to be watching on Friday night?
This is always the best college football like schedule of the year because you're not sharing anything with the NFL. So it's like you have like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, which is awesome. Friday night, TCU Stanford is kind of the big one. I think TCU has like everyone sort of forgot about them. After you lose a national championship game by 60 points and then go out and lose your season opener the next year, TCU won 5 games last year. There's like a weird sort of like kind of like comeback energy with them. I don't know how great they're going to be. This is a weirdo Big 12 ACC matchup now. I don't think Stanford is really going to see any improvement. They've lost a lot of their best players. So like, I guess that's the game I'm looking at, but truly the crown jewel of the weekend is Saturday.
Yeah, okay. So let's start with the noon ABC game on Saturday. Number 14 Clemson at number 1 Georgia. This game's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and Georgia has not lost a regular season game since 2020. That is like crazy. They were I know we talked about Georgia being left out of the playoff last year, but like the national conversation about the playoff was all about Florida State getting left out when Georgia was a incredibly dominant team in 2023. So who are you picking in this game? It's a 14-point spread in favor of Georgia, and what are you looking for in this one?
I can tell you right now, I'm picking the dogs in every single game this season. I don't care who they're playing. I'm picking the dogs. They are far and away the most talented team in college football. Carson Beck is a Heisman candidate. I know that Clemson is kind of like a sneaky pick for everyone right now, especially like kind of how we talked earlier, the ACC feels wide open, so people are sort of buying into Clemson again, and I do think this is an improved Clemson team. However, Georgia is so much better than everybody else. They are so much more talented than everybody else. Georgia is the best team in college football. They are number 1 for a reason. I will never bet against the dogs.
The last game that you were at was the Georgia-Florida State game. I believe that was 63-3 was the final score of the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, I was there the whole time.
Yeah, right. You definitely didn't leave early.
All 66 points, I saw them.
Yeah, I'm with you. Clemson I think they're going to have a really good defense this year. I think they're ranked top 10 in F+, but their offense has been sort of the issue there. Cade Klubnik is back. If you're just looking on paper, I think Georgia's definitely the more talented team. Dabo Swinney's still not doing the portal, still being a little stubborn about that. We'll see if it comes back to bite them. I think Clemson will do well this year, and I think they'll do well in the ACC, but I agree with you. I think Georgia's probably the easy choice there. At the same time, over on Fox, you've got Penn State, the 8th ranked team in the AP poll, at West Virginia. This is a tough road game to open with for Penn State.
Is this really sneaky? I think what people Penn State opened the season with West Virginia last year as well, I believe. And that game, Penn State eventually covered, but it was really close until the fourth quarter. Like, it took kind of like a final stretch sort of pull away for Penn State to look as dominant in the scoreboard as they thought they were going to actually look on the game. This game is sneaky. West Virginia is much better than they have been the last 2 years. Neil Brown was on the hot seat last season, ended up going 8-5. And Morgantown is not a joke. Those fans are absolutely bad. Crazy. That is a super difficult environment. I wish it were a night game. I think Penn State wins, but I would not be surprised if West Virginia covers.
That would be a fun night game. You're right. Yeah, West Virginia is going to have, I think, a pretty good run game. They've got some really solid running backs coming back, as well as their quarterback, Garrett Green, who had 13 rushing touchdowns in 2023, which I think was the most among FBS quarterbacks. I will double check that. No, I won't. Someone else will do it, and they'll tell me if I'm wrong. I'm with you. I think Penn State's going to be really good. They're also like a trendy college football playoff pick. I think if you had to look outside of like the Oregons and the Ohio States of the Big Ten, Penn State's like right up there with them in terms of talent. But, you know, obviously the James Franklin memes exist for a reason. They struggled against big games. So we'll see about that. But after that game ends, Lucy, Miami at Florida. Miami ranked number 19 right now. Small favorite against Florida. Florida's got a just insane back half of their schedule. They're brutal. Playing like every difficult team for their final 6 games. And Miami, again, in the ACC, has a really, really good roster, super talented team. They've got one of the best quarterbacks coming to Miami that was in the portal last year, Cam Ward from Washington State. Who are you picking in this game?
I actually don't know who I'm picking in this game yet. So the thing with Florida is, for some reason, I watched a lot of Florida football last year.
They are a fan.
Yeah, the most accurate quarterback in the SEC. We all know this. Florida is an incredibly talented team. They're not dissimilar from Miami in that situation. But watching every Florida game last year was like physically painful, because you would see most of their games, they were just as talented as their opponent, but just the basic of just like being a well-disciplined team, they just could not get down. Like, I believe it was the Florida State game where they were in it and then literally just got so many penalties in a row that they took themselves out of that game. So Florida, I think, one, Billy Napier is on one of the hottest seats in college football. They need this win because, like you said, their schedule doesn't get any easier. Graham Mertz is going to need to have a good team. Good game. They lost their running back. I don't know, because if Florida has worked out those little details, I think they can absolutely beat Miami. But I truly don't know if they're going to do it. I think Graham Mertz will be fine. This game is weird energy. Everything that happens in Gainesville is a little odd. So I don't actually know who I'm picking. Jess, do you have a pick?
I think Miami is going to win. I think Miami's biggest opponent is themselves. Like, I think they're actually going to be really good this year. So yeah, I guess I have Miami in this one. And let's move on to the primetime game, because Notre Dame is playing at Texas A&M. Lucy, you're going to be in College Station. Is this your first time going to Texas A&M for a football game?
My first trip to College Station. I'm very, very excited.
Wow, I'm so excited for you. This is going to be super cool. So Mike Elko is the new head coach at Texas A&M, took over after Jimbo Fisher got fired and got one of the largest buyouts in the history of any sport for like $80 million. They were like, please leave. And Mike Elko, was the head coach at Duke last year. Riley Leonard was the quarterback at Duke. Now Riley Leonard, the quarterback at Notre Dame. Mike Elko, the head coach at Texas A&M. So they're facing off against each other, which is pretty weird. A story for our times, the times of the portal. Crazy things are happening. Look, I could talk about the Notre Dame side of this for like the next 4 hours, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to throw it to you. Tell me what you think about this game.
I think Notre Dame's going to win this game. I think that there's just too much change happening with Texas A&M right now. I said it last year, I'll say it again. Mike Elko was the right hire for Texas A&M to make. If you look at what he did at Duke with literally a quarter of the talent of what he has at A&M, like, I have no doubt that he will succeed in this role. But they're bringing in a new offensive coordinator. There's so much change. They had a lot of players leave the portal. A lot of players come in through the portal. Texas A&M will be an incredibly talented team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win 7-8 games this year. Like, definitely improvement from the Jimbo era. But I think that Notre Dame as a school is just, as a team, they're too well disciplined, they're too tough, and I think home field advantage works for Texas A&M. But I just don't see them winning this game. I actually think it'll be pretty close. But I'm excited to see the Mike Elko, Colin Klein era at A&M. I think they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this game, I think Notre Dame will struggle in this game because it's an away game and because their offensive line is very young. And Notre Dame's offense they need to like sort of prove themselves, right? Like it's pretty much a brand new wide receiver room. You've got a lot of players coming in the portal. You've got a quarterback that hasn't taken a snap at Notre Dame before, that was injured last year to end the season, has had, surgery in the offseason. But Notre Dame's defense is really, really good. And so the flip side of that is, Texas A&M's offense has to play against a really, really good Notre Dame defense. One of the best defenders in college football. So I don't know. I kind of have my heart's telling me Texas A&M, so it just doesn't break. So this is me like softening expectations for myself. I also like to pick against Notre Dame so that like I can, you just be like, oh man, I didn't expect anything anyways. And then if they actually win, I'm like, wow, I totally knew that was going to happen. Okay, so moving on to no one wants to listen to me talk about Notre Dame. So moving on to Sunday.
I do. Don't let them tell you that.
Oh, let's do we'll do a separate side episode just about Notre Dame and Iowa, just like for us. That would be fun. We should Taylor put that on the schedule. Okay, so there's another game on Sunday that is very funny because Lincoln Riley has tried to cancel this game, according to reports. He tried to call his agent that him and Brian Kelly share, Trace Armstrong, to try to get this game taken off the calendar. This is the USC-LSU game on Sunday night on ABC in Las Vegas. So USC, coming into the season, sort of in a similar place as LSU. Both of them had pretty crappy defenses last year. They're trying to get over that. Both of them lost their Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks to the NFL. So these are two teams that have very similar strengths and weaknesses going into this game. I kind of like LSU in this one. I think LSU should be pretty good this year, but who do you have?
I have LSU in this one too. I think they are like slightly more talented than USC. USC did bring in a new defensive coordinator. They brought in UCLA's defensive coordinator, which is kind of like a weird fit. Yeah, the whole vibe of USC and Lincoln Riley just feels like it's going to end really soon. I think that there's a lot of things factoring into USC this season, specifically their move to the Big Ten. I just don't think they're adjusted or prepared for anything that's about to head their way. I know that Caleb Williams is gone and Jaden Daniels is gone, so like the whole thing is just odd. I don't expect this to be a game I'm going to enjoy as an Iowa fan, but I think that every other college football fan in the planet will enjoy this. I just think that LSU is slightly better, slightly more talented, and I think that we're going to see USC fall out of the rankings pretty soon and kind of stay there. They also have a super difficult schedule too. Like, I don't know, the whole vibe from this game doesn't seem like anything that I would personally enjoy, but I'm taking LSU, and I believe the line is LSU is -4.5.
Mm-hmm. LSU is favored in this one, and they should be. They lost a ton of players in the draft. Like they're obviously like replacing a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, but also I think are like having to overcome slightly less bad struggles on the defensive side. Like USC was in the bad place last year with Alex Grinch, and so like you said, they hired a pretty decent defensive coordinator to come back and like try to fix things there. So we'll see how they look. I love picking week 1 games because it is really truly like we saw USC's quarterback play in a bowl game and we were like, wow, that guy was really good, but like who the hell knows? Like we will see him in an actual game now, and not that the bowl games are, they're my favorite things ever, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're playing against a third of whatever team you're actually facing.
So we'll learn a lot this weekend. And finally, I think we have time for this one. Monday night, there is also another game. You will see Florida State again if you are a college football fan watching this game with Boston College coming to Tallahassee on Monday. Boston College's quarterback is really fun to watch. He's actually like pretty cool, pretty dynamic. He can run fast. He's pretty awesome. But is this the rare must-win week 1 game for Florida State, Lucy?
It's absolutely a must win. I saw a Florida State fan tweeted like, I'll eat my own shit if we lose this game.
Oh, God.
So yeah, it's a must win for that specific guy alone. Like you have to win this game.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. I love a week 1 must win. Like it's just so silly. But yeah, so Lucy, you're going to a bunch of games this year. You're going to Texas A&M this weekend. Do you have any sort of like, what should we expect from off-roading this year? What are you excited about?
I'm excited for this whole thing. Ideally, the plan is to try to go to as many games of places we didn't actually go to last year. So Texas A&M is new. We are going to Iowa week 2, so that kind of went out the window. But
you should.
But it's El Assico. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't want us to go to the grossest football game of the year? Do you not even know me? Of course we're going to El Assico. So it's going to be fun. We don't have it, we're still sort of figuring out the schedule, but I'm excited for Texas A&M. We're going to try to go to Midnight Yell, which has always been a dream of mine.
That's so far past my bedtime.
Oh, it's so late. I was like,
it's late.
But it's a night game, so
and
it's okay. I
late.
can sleep in.
But yeah, this is fun. Lucy, we'll be doing this every week of college football season. Thank you to Cheese It. We're feeling the cheesiest. Coach Cheese. Let us know what you want to hear from Gen CFB this year. We'll take advice and pointers and questions from fans. And follow, subscribe. Let us know how you like the show.